Something is cracking inside America's justice system, and for the first time in years, someone finally said the part out loud. It happened in a moment most people almost missed, a calm, collected senator asking a series of simple questions that suddenly felt like a warning flare. By the time he was done, the entire room understood the message. When legitimacy collapses, everything collapses with it. And watching that exchange unfold, it became painfully clear that the stakes are far bigger than one hearing, one official, or one administration. This is about whether Americans still believe in the system that claims to protect them. Because once that belief dies, the chaos that follows doesn't knock first. It kicks the door down. Senator Kennedy's questions were simple, but the weight behind them wasn't. He started by getting agreement on something most people take for granted, that legitimacy is the foundation of the justice system.
In Washington.
An attorney, correct?
Yes. He was a media star. And many members of our media loved him because he persistently bashed Donald Trump. And he was on TV every day. He was on CNN more than Wolf Blitzer. Do you know where Mr. Avenatti is today?
I believe he's sitting in prison, Senator.
He's in jail because he was a crook. And the Department of Justice helped put him there, didn't it?
Yes, Senator.
Do you remember a gentleman by the name of Sam Bankman-Fried?
Yes, Senator.
Boy genius. So smart and so powerful that he thought he could command the tides. So smart and so powerful and so rich that he would go to meetings with serious people like Bill Clinton, like Tony Blair, looking like a slob, looking like a fourth runner-up to a John Belushi lookalike contest. And he thought it was cute. Where's Mr. Bankman-Fried today?
I believe he is in prison, and I believe that's from the Netflix series I saw as well.
Mm-hmm. Because he's a crook. And who helped put him there?
The Department of Justice, Senator.
Can we agree that there's some really, really good men and women at the Department of Justice?
Many, many great men and women in the Justice Department, as well, Senator, as all the law enforcement agencies that fall within the Department of Justice. They're out there risking their lives, especially the law enforcement officers, every single day.
Can we agree, though, that there have been and may be today some bad people at the Department of Justice?
Yes, Senator.
We don't know for sure because for the last 4 years, the curtains there have been tightly drawn. But I think a minority of people there, have delegitimized America's criminal justice system. The most destabilizing act that I saw in the past 4 years, maybe in the history of the department, is when Attorney General Garland decided on the basis of dubious facts and untested legal theories to criminally prosecute a former president of the United States. And not only that, this is the special part. He decided to do it after the former president of the United States had announced that he was going to run against Attorney General Garland's boss, didn't he?
Senator, are you referring to going after a political opponent?
I think so. Now, this is one person's opinion. That kind of stupid takes a plan. And I say that because, number one, this is America. That had never happened before in America. That's the sort of thing that happens in a country whose Powerball jackpot is 287 chickens and a goat. It doesn't happen here. And I call it stupid because it broke the seal. It broke the seal. It normalized it. There are a lot of ambitious prosecutors in America, Democrat and Republican. And I'll bet you right now there's some prosecutor in a particular state thinking about, well, maybe I ought to file criminal charges against President Biden's inner circle for conspiring to conceal his mental decline. And that's the road we're headed down. And you've got to fix it, Counselor. You've got to fix it. And here's, in my judgment, what I would ask you to do. Find out who the bad guys are and the bad women and get rid of them. Find out who the good people are and lift them up. But do it on the basis of facts and evidence and fairness. Because the temptation of some people is going to be, they're going to tell you, look, two wrongs don't make a right, but they do make it even. Don't resist that temptation. Help us restore legitimacy to the Department of Justice.
Thank you, Senator.
If people believe the system is fair, they follow it. If they don't, they won't. It sounds obvious, but it's exactly the kind of truth people overlook until it's too late. Kennedy pushed Pam Bondi to say it plainly. When people stop trusting the justice system, they stop respecting the law. And once that happens, society doesn't slowly drift off course. It falls apart. That's the part nobody wants to admit, because acknowledging it means accepting just how fragile the entire structure actually is. Everything looks strong until the glue melts. But that wasn't the whole story. Kennedy wasn't just making a theoretical point. He was laying the groundwork for a bigger accusation that somewhere along the way, the very institution Americans depend on has been chipping away at its own credibility. The curtains have been closed, accountability has blurred, and decisions that should unite the country have instead split it in half. And online, people have been whispering the same question for months. If the justice system starts to look political, how long until people stop taking it seriously? Rumors have been spreading about internal disagreements, about certain officials pushing their own agendas, and about prosecutors choosing which cases to pursue not based on evidence, but on optics. None of that is proven, but the fact that people believe it at all tells you how shaky trust has become. To show what legitimacy is supposed to look like, Kennedy brought up a man who once dominated the news cycle, Michael Avenatti. Years ago, he was treated like a star. Media outlets couldn't get enough of him. He spoke with confidence, swagger, and certainty. And then the curtain dropped. Beneath the polished image was a long list of schemes, lies, and manipulations. The moment the truth surfaced, the entire persona collapsed. The system stepped in, and Avenatti went from cable news hero to inmate. It was a reminder that even when someone seems untouchable, the law can still catch up. But the deeper point was that the system only works when the people running it stay loyal to facts, not politics. Avenatti's downfall wasn't about ideology. It was about evidence. And that difference matters more than most people realize. Then Kennedy moved to an even more notorious example, Sam Bankman-Fried, the so-called crypto genius who fooled investors, politicians, and celebrities. He walked into high-level meetings looking like he'd just rolled out of bed, and people treated it like charm instead of a warning sign. He talked fast, moved money faster, and built a reputation on a foundation that had no substance. When the truth finally surfaced, the collapse was instant. And once again, the justice system stepped in. Bankman-Fried's empire didn't fall because of political motivation. It fell because of facts, investigations, and evidence that spoke for itself. And that's the whole issue. Kennedy used these examples to show that the justice system can still work when it stays focused on truth. But then he pivoted, and the tone shifted. Because according to him, The same system that took down scammers and fraudsters has also made decisions that threaten its own credibility. And here's the danger. If people start believing the system picks its targets based on political convenience, not actual wrongdoing, then the victories no longer feel like justice. They start feeling like theater. Suddenly, every prosecution becomes suspicion, every verdict becomes a question mark, and every decision becomes a debate instead of a conclusion. Kennedy pushed Bondi harder. He suggested that in the past few years, information has been hidden rather than shared, that transparency has vanished, and that people have been shielded from accountability inside the department itself. That doesn't mean the entire institution is corrupt. He made it clear there are countless good men and women upholding the law with integrity. But it only takes a handful of bad actors to compromise the whole structure, because trust doesn't crumble evenly. It shatters where the cracks already exist. Then came the moment that made the room shift. Kennedy argued that the decision to prosecute a former president marked a dangerous turning point, not because of who was involved, but because of the precedent it sets. For the first time, America crossed a line that had never been crossed before. And whether people agree with the charges or not, the timing created a perception that weaponizing the justice system was suddenly on the table. Rumors spread online about political motivations. Commentators argued about selective prosecution. Others insisted it was all justified. But Kennedy's warning wasn't about guilt or innocence. It was about something deeper. Once a system becomes a tool in political battles, it stops being trusted as a system. It becomes just another weapon. That's what he meant when he said the seal had been broken. Not a literal seal, but a boundary, a limit, a line. And once the line moves, it rarely moves back. Kennedy suggested that ambitious prosecutors across the country were now looking at future opportunities, wondering if targeting political opponents was now fair game. Maybe at the state level, maybe against high-profile advisors, maybe against the next administration. It doesn't take long before payback becomes policy, and there's already been chatter online about potential vulnerabilities in the current leadership. Discussions about mental decline, questionable decisions, and inconsistencies that critics say could open legal doors. None of it is proven, but the point Kennedy made was that once political prosecution becomes normalized, every flaw becomes ammunition. Every mistake becomes a weapon. Every administration becomes a target. The real danger isn't the prosecution itself, it's the cycle it creates. Because once one side starts, the other side feels justified to respond. Then the next administration does the same. And soon, no leader leaves office without expecting retaliation. That's when the justice system stops being a system of law and becomes a scoreboard. And when that happens, people don't just lose trust. They stop participating altogether. They stop believing in fairness. They stop believing in institutions. And all that's left is chaos. Kennedy told Bondi that the only way forward is to identify the good actors and remove the bad ones. Not based on ideology, but on facts. Evidence. Integrity. He warned her that some people will argue for payback, that they'll claim two wrongs make it even. He told her to resist that urge, to anchor herself in fairness rather than vengeance. Because if the country starts running on revenge instead of justice, it won't survive the fallout. The hearing ended like a quiet echo in a storm. No shouting, no dramatic gestures, just a serious warning delivered in calm sentences. But the weight behind those words was unmistakable. America is standing at the edge of a cliff, and the only thing stopping it from falling is faith. Faith in systems, faith in truth, faith in fairness. Once that faith disappears, no courtroom verdict or legal argument can bring it back. So maybe the real question isn't whether the justice system is legitimate right now. Maybe the real question is how close it already is to losing the last of the trust it has left. Let me know what you think in the comments. And if you're ready for more breakdowns like this, hit that subscribe button, drop a like, and buckle up. The next video goes even deeper into the controversy.